it's not the same as when you're on a domestic flight that's 3 or 4 hours, and you know, all right, so there's somebody bothering you, not bothering you, but who is some obnoxious person doing something.
It's over soon, right?
It's over soon. When you're on a plane for 7 or 8 hours,
it's a
people, and this is a lot of coming back from Israel, a lot of families and a lot of kicking. And
usually
I just remember once.
I love kids, but somebody who screams nonstop.
I didn't have this on this trip, but once I was on a flight, it was an overnight flight, and I'm sleeping, and the people I always get an aisle seat, and there were people I didn't know on the inside, and they decided to step over me, and come out, and I all of a sudden, while I'm sleeping, I open my eyes, and then and then it's these kind of stories, which of course are petty and sort of.
No, it's hard.
Human nature.
It's just hard. I think flying is harder.
It is hard, and I think the older you get, the less patience I have. Sure. I will say that I did what I think is, and I'm gonna try and do this again. It was just an accident, really. From Orlando to London, I was trying to find, like everybody does, trying to find a good deal.
Anybody want some M&Ms?
No, thank
you. Trying to find a good deal, and I found that flying on this discount airline called Norse. I told you that. Well, because it's a discount airline, and the tickets are like $119 to London. An economy.
It's pretty
good. Yeah, you get no luggage and no food.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
But I upgraded to their version of first class, and of course I knew that their version of first class was not going to be like first class on Delta or Swiss or Lufthansa. Once I accidentally got upgraded, not accidentally, I got upgraded on Lufthansa when I arrived in Israel.
Must be nice.
I begged them to let me stay on the plane, please, but I was so nice. It was absolutely amazing. But by doing that, first of all, it was not really many family, big families with 12 children, and not a lot of. Also, London is a different population. Going to London is a different population than coming home from Israel. Make of that whatever you want, but anyway, so upgrading to first class on a discount airline is worth it.
That was good,
because even though it costs more,
that's great. There's a lot of people who fly to Israel from here that fly through Zurich.
Yeah, and I've done that also, and that actually works well.
El Al is exorbitantly expensive to fly to the United States.
Yes, to fly to the United States. Another mistake I made was leaving London, and this was because I just didn't know and I didn't pay attention. I think I mentioned this. I was flying out of London not out of Gatwick or Heathrow, but Luton.
Oh,
which is an hour, more than an hour.
Did you have to switch?
No, I didn't switch.
Okay.
That was the only airline. That was the only air for El Al. And I didn't switch, but because the flight was at 7 a.m. in the morning, which was not good planning on my part, I had to take a private cab. Go back and take a cab, which was as expensive as some flights. Next time I have to pay. When you go someplace you've never been,
Yeah,
You don't know. You don't know. And I mean, I saw this was like, you know,
Well,
yeah, I'm back, and the time in Israel was great. And if you haven't been, you've been to Israel, and if you've not, I recommend going. It's still a little bit, not a lot of tourists there.
no,
you know.
that's sad.
Not a lot of
But
tourists.
you know, it's amazing now is, and I've never been when it was built, is the train from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
We took the train from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. We took the train from. It's a little longer.
Okay, I just have to
Well,
say,
we took
I'm
the
gonna
train
short.
from. It was about 30 minutes. 30 to 40 minutes. But the train from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
And then we took the train from Tel Aviv to Haifa.
How long
And then
is
we
that?
took the train from Haifa to back to the airport.
Tel Aviv to Haifa was a short train.
I mean, I
For
just
30,
take
40
that train.
minutes. No. This is really nice. It's not
It's
as nice as any train,
Yeah.
ride anywhere. What I didn't know there was that on Sunday, in Israel, Sunday is like Monday here. So on the soldiers in Israel, in the Israeli army, I mean, they go home. My mama does their laundry. They take their laundry. They go home on the weekends. And so we had a flight out on Sunday morning, and I thought Sunday morning would be a good time to fly. Of course, when I talked to my relatives after I'm there, they said, "Oh no, Sunday morning is terrible. All the soldiers are going back to the base. You're going to be on it." So I get on the train. Literally, it's like being on a military transport. And in Israel, all the soldiers carry their weapons with them all the time. So I'm with, in a single rail car with maybe 100 soldiers who are, and 100 machine guns and bazooka shooters and grenade shooters, and they're all playing their video games, which are all violent war games, while they're at 7 o'clock. It was fine. It was an experience. It was okay, and all over Israel, there's a lot of construction, a lot of light rail, and all the cities like you have in Europe. The trains that you can just get on trams, the way you get, it's a very European kind of becoming more and more. So.
But you had a good time.
But I had a good time,
Transportation.
and I had a good time, and we went to visit family. And the truth of the matter is that visiting, when you go to be with family or to see people it makes a lot of difference. That's the best. Let me talk today about our topic, which, and we are recording this because I figured a lot of people were not going to be planning on me being here, and it's called, but it's an interesting topic for tonight, and that is talking about the end of life. And so the chapter on the page opens up with discussing something that is actually quite near and dear to my heart, and it is taking care of those who are ill. We call it, it's called Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick, but visiting the sick is not really all that it's meant, just going in and making a visit. It is about our taking care of people, of our community, of our taking care of each other. And when it comes to values in Judaism, this value of saying that we take care of each other is an important value. recently one of our members donated an ambulance in Israel. And it's an organization that facilitates this idea of being able to give an ambulance to the state of Israel, and that is used both for military use as well as civilian use. And when I spoke to her about this generous gift, very generous gift, one of the things I said to her was, this is a high Jewish value. This idea of saying, I'm going to take care of others. And to me, it falls under this same category of Bikur Cholim, of visiting the sick. Even though, Bikur means visiting and Cholim means sick, visiting the sick, I take it as a much wider thing. It's not always, I think the idea of how we visit the sick has to be done with compassion and with sensitivity, I guess, because everybody is different, and different people have different needs, and so simply necessarily showing up at someone's doorstep may not be the best way to provide assistance. But in any event, the chapter opens with talking about this mitzvah. It is the same thing that we do if you come to services and you see that we do a prayer of healing in the middle of Shabbat services. Now that is part of this same mitzvah, and people have asked me about this prayer for healing. First of all, it's an anomaly because, as we talked about on Shabbat, as we talked about in a previous class, on Shabbat we don't normally pray for something for ourselves. On Shabbat, during the week, we pray, God give us health, God let me make a living today, God heal people. But on Shabbat, we stop asking. We don't usually ask for anything on Shabbat. Shabbat is about taking a break from asking for things. I mean, besides not working, it's also, we don't ask for things. There's only one exception. It's a modern exception, and that is a prayer for healing. It's the only exception. We're on Shabbat, and the reason we have that exception is because so many people, that is the only time they are in prayer, even though Jewish prayer happens every day. For most people, that's the only time. And this idea of making a public prayer for healing is so powerful and touches people in such a way and fulfills this mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, of taking care of those in need, that the rabbis in modern times have said, we will make an exception. Even though on Shabbat we don't ask for anything, we'll make an exception. So people ask me, well, what does it mean? How sick do you have to be to get on the Bikur Cholim list, to make a prayer for healing? And that does not depend on the sick person. It depends on the person who is making the prayer. There's no threshold. As I've said before to people, everybody has something that is going on with them. You could have a cavity in you could have a cavity this week in your tooth, and then there's even the most healthy person in the world could have something. And at what time when do you stop saying prayer for healing for someone? people are always aging, they're always getting older, they're always going to have health situations, both physical and emotional, spiritual, and mental. So that again depends on the person who is saying the prayer. The prayer does not have to be said out loud. That is a total, God does not only hear the prayers we say out loud. God hears the prayers we say to ourselves. The reason some rabbis adopted this out loud version that we do here, which is not universal. It's only done in maybe 10, 15% of the synagogues, is the way we do it here, is because for some people who are making the prayer, they like being able to announce aloud the name of the person they're praying for, and it allows others to know who is sick. Is the psychology there. But personally, for me, even though I include a number of people in my prayer for healing, I never say the name aloud. Why? Because not all people first of all, want to be identified as ill, number one. Number two, I believe people should have privacy when it comes to matters of health, mental illness, addiction. All of these things are included in prayers for healing, and to say we want to make an announcement, and maybe so someone will come up and say, "Oh, what's wrong with that person?" is not such a great, in my opinion, is not such a great idea. So I do not say their names out loud, and will not. But other rabbis do. I mean, and certainly other people do. Certainly, it's up to the person making the prayer. That's enough for our talking about that. If you have questions about the prayer, the other thing I will say is that I've been asked this question a lot. What about if someone's on hospice? When someone's on hospice, we do not do a prayer necessarily for complete healing. There is a time for us to change that prayer from a prayer for healing to a prayer for emotional support and for love and to be surrounded. We have to know that for some things there is not going to be healing, but there is prayers for support and surrounding love. These are again my opinions on this. What about the end of life? What happens at the end of life as people are near the end? There is in Judaism there is a prayer for last rites, and you've seen on television. Usually, it's a Catholic priest in the middle of a battle or something, or comes in to give a last rites, and they'll have their little tallis or talit or whatever. But that's a Catholic. But in Judaism, there is a prayer that is said near the end of life. If the person is able to, they say it on their own. If not, someone can say it for them. And it's a prayer asking for forgiveness and asking for praying that a prayer that says, may I be counted among the righteous and so on. But what happens if someone at the end of their life doesn't say the last rites? Nothing happens. We don't have this idea in Judaism that you have to do something in life to be accepted by God. God accepts everybody. We are all part of God's kingdom. We are all part of God's and you don't even have to be Jewish. There's nothing that says to get into heaven you have to do something. But this prayer at the end of life, which we call the vidui or confessional prayer, this prayer is meant to give comfort both for the survivors and for the person who is at the end of their life, able to unburden themselves, able to feel that they are surrounded by love. The prayer, when I do this prayer, the most important line of the prayer is, of course, Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That's a very important prayer in Judaism. But I also include the last line of our prayer service. Whenever we have services, the last line is, the last prayer we do is Adon Olam, and the last line of the Adon Olam is Adonai li v'lo ira, which means God is with me, I have no fear. That's how I do this prayer, and that's how when we do this last rites, that's how I, the thing that I want people to know: God is with me, I have no fear. What about other questions that are asked by the chapter here that people often ask me? What about life support? What about suicide, organ donation, and autopsy? Those topics. So let me take each one. Judaism places great value on life, and in fact, in the book of Deuteronomy, there is a specific mitzvah that says choose life. And the way we understand this commandment to choose life means that choosing life, choosing the decision to be alive, is a high mitzvah. Life-saving measures at the end of life are appropriate. Life-saving measures that are that will not lead to a life, not that maybe that maybe will not lead a person, and in some cases, the doctors are able to keep a person's body going and not without a chance of brain activity and things like that. That's, to me, that's not choosing life. That's choosing some kind of artificial means of supporting life without a hope of curing. But each case is different, and each family and each person has to make their own decision. But what is clear is that suicide and euthanasia are both discouraged and prohibited in Judaism. And that that makes it difficult because we now have coming up around the United States this idea of being able to end life artificially in the case of a terminal illness. I have my own opinions on that and my own thoughts about it, but in general, I will say traditionally, Judaism has always been choose life, and trying to choose life. Now, how one interprets that, how one understands that, again, depends on maybe this particular situation, and if you have questions, specific questions, I can answer that. Organ donation is, in my opinion, an extremely high mitzvah, an extremely important thing to be able to give life or restore vision or restore healing to someone else. To me is a very high mitzvah. To me is also a way of fulfilling that mitzvah of choosing life. Up until recently, there were some Jews who were opposed to organ donation, who said that their understanding of Jewish customs was that a person needed to be buried with all of their parts, and they resisted this idea of donating organs. But today, even among very Orthodox and traditional Jews, and certainly almost, I would say, all Jewish leaders, rabbis, the understanding that we now have the opportunity to become an organ donor and to an organ recipient and extend someone's life or the quality of their life, that is seen as a very high mitzvah. And every year I've tried to do an organ donation Shabbat where I've spoken on this topic and tried to encourage people to be organ donors and to understand what a beautiful mitzvah this can be. Similarly, autopsy, in the case of medical necessity, if it's not a medical necessity, if it's just for research, Judaism would probably say, would be reluctant, but even research can save life. And so autopsy, certainly when required by law, is permitted, but autopsy, when it is done to save someone else's life or to gain a better understanding in how to treat illness or disease, is again seen as a mitzvah. And this was not well understood in previous generations, but now we understand how this can be a way of taking care of the community, taking care of others. What are the traditions when someone passes? And this, I think, is not everybody knows about this, but let me run through this and let people understand a little bit, let you all understand a little bit about the rituals surrounding death. When a person dies in Judaism, it is important. One of the values is how we take care of the deceased individual once they're deceased, and how we take care of the mourners. One value in Judaism has always been to quickly arrange burial, and also we do not do cremation. We don't do cremation, but I'll get to that in a minute. We do not do embalming, artificial preservation of the body.
What is embalming?
Embalming is when they formaldehyde, right? Embalming is the process of preserving the body using chemicals like formaldehyde. Judaism has always said the way we honor the deceased is by not disturbing them, by not violating their privacy or disturbing them. So embalming is not done in traditional Judaism. And the funeral or the burial takes place as quickly as possible. In traditional circles, that's within 24 hours. And you might say to me, that sounds terrible. Within 24 hours to bury someone? Well, traditionally, people lived in small communities. They didn't travel 500 miles. It was impossible to travel 500 miles to take you 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, to get to a funeral. So a quick burial was important, not only because no preservation methods like refrigeration or other things were available, but also because everybody was there already. Everybody was already nearby. Today we live in a different world, of course. Families are spread out, transportation methods have evolved, and we may wait 2 or 3 days. But in fact, it's difficult for the mourners, for those who are alive, because that puts them in this period in a kind of holding period. There's actually, a name for that kind of period where you're in a holding period waiting. There's not a closure for the burial and the person has passed. In practicality, what happens is that the deceased is cared for by the community. And that happens here in Gainesville. It happens in communities, other places as well. We work hand in hand with funeral homes, but in our community and in communities like ours, there are people who volunteer to be on what is called the Chevra Kadisha. That Chevra means society, or society. Kadisha means holiness. So Chevra Kadisha is what's called the Holy Society. There are 2 groups. There's a group for men and a group for women. Men take care of men, women take care of women. So the deceased is transported to the funeral home, where the Chevra Kadisha will convene there and prepare the body for burial by a gentle washing, like a washing, like a bath, and also because mikveh, we haven't done the lesson on conversion yet, but anyway, mikveh, we talked about weddings. Big events in a person's life are often accompanied by mikveh, like a wedding, where we go to the mikveh and we go in the water and we come out of the water. And it's a kind of spiritual purification that happens with the deceased as well, where they have a mikveh of a sort in the funeral home, and they're taken care of by community members.
They get dressed.
And they're dressed in a particular way. In the Jewish tradition, everybody is buried wearing the same clothes. These are burial shrouds. That's different from some other faiths where people may be buried in their best suit or in a, fancy clothes or something like that. In Judaism, we come into the world wearing the same thing. And when we go out of the world, we're all wearing the same burial shrouds, which are loose-fitting garments made of simple material, in white, and are kind of a beautiful way of saying everybody's the same. There's not rich people don't get one thing and poor people something else. We're all the same. These simple garments which maybe look like something like pajamas or something like that. Have no pockets on them. There's no need for pockets. You don't need a place for your wallet or anything like that. And it's a simple garment, and the Chevra Kadisha dresses the person and gently places the deceased in the casket.
Where does the garment come from?
The garment comes from Amazon. No, the garment comes from. Actually, there are people who make these garments. I mean, we order them here in America. We order them from companies that supply funeral supplies. And I once visited, a factory where little old ladies, they're just white muslin material, like sheet material, like material used for sheets, are sewing these pajamas. It maybe took them 5 minutes or something to sew these pajamas, sew these burial shrouds. So they're ordered, and we have a supply of them at the funeral home. And just like also the caskets, in America, we use wooden caskets. The requirement for a Jewish casket is that it is not decorated in any particular way. Sometimes they'll often have a Jewish star on it, or sometimes handles, not always. But it cannot have any metal in it, metal, any metal in it. It needs to be all wood, which is meant to quickly decay. And for us, burial is, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Returning to the dust is part of this holy process of burial. And in addition to that, the body is not left alone, if possible. That we try to have someone with the deceased during that time before the funeral. We're not abandoning someone at the end of their life. They're treated with as much respect at the end of their life before burial as hopefully they were treated in their life when they were alive. And you can say, well, that's true, but it's not necessarily true, and it's a special honor. It's a special honor to be able to take care of someone in Judaism who cannot say thank you. And that is, they say, what is the highest mitzvah you can do? What's the highest good deed you can do? The highest good deed is when you do a deed where it's impossible for anybody to say thank you. The names of the people who are on the Chevra Kadisha are not publicized at all. The names of the people on the Chevra Kadisha, you may know, a place like Gainesville, it may be obvious who's on the Chevra Kadisha, or you may figure it out, or you may be on the Chevra Kadisha, and then you would know for sure, of course, who the others are. But it's not revealed. It's not told to the family, and even though I have heard people go around telling people I'm on the Chevra Kadisha, by tradition, you don't ever say if you're on the Chevra Kadisha. That's something, a mitzvah that you do without revealing or saying.
But the family comes in at the end, no?
The family does not come in, and the family does not meet the Chevra Kadisha ever. In Switzerland, the family comes in and meets the Chevra Kadisha. That may be. And now I will say this, death customs are all local.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's interesting though.
In Judaism, there is great variety in customs surrounding death. And I totally believe you that the family may come in and meet the Chevra Kadisha.
Yeah.
But that's not how we do it here. And
It's interesting.
so in Switzerland, and places like Switzerland or Italy. So in America, our customs are very similar to Eastern Europe, to Ashkenaz, to Polish and Ashkenaz, because most Jews in America, that's where they came from. Customs in other places do have a lot of variety in what I'm saying. So, but here, the Chevra Kadisha, and in big communities like in Atlanta or Miami, the Chevra Kadisha, people who join the Chevra Kadisha, they will have dinners, they will have fundraisers, but they're not for the public. They're only for the members of the Chevra Kadisha.
Like that.
And there are men's Chevra Kadisha and a women's Chevra Kadisha. We don't have that here where we have dinners and these small groups here, but they know that is their responsibility and that they do that with each other. A very important part of the community.
I like that you don't know who they are. I kind of like that.
Yeah,
To
you don't know who they are, and
myself.
you don't, and also doesn't matter if the person is known by the community or not known by the community, or if they're rich or poor. Everybody gets Chevra Kadisha. Everybody. We take care of everybody, whether we know them, whether we don't know them. They identify themselves as Jewish. I mean, obviously they deceased them, but before they, and they identify as Jewish, we take care of them.
So would somebody call you and say, we have a family member that, even if they're not part of the
Oh yeah,
community?
we take care of in this congregation takes care of everybody from Jacksonville to Orlando.
Oh, wow.
And so we're the only Chevra Kadisha, and so there are maybe 5, 6 congregations, 7. Sometimes I'll get a call from a rabbi in another congregation, in Ocala or in Gainesville, and we go and take care of them. No, that person may never have walked in our door, and we don't charge. I mean, here at B'nai Israel, we do. I mean, some congregations do, or some congregations we don't charge. We go and take care of them. Sometimes it's just one person who goes. Can't get a whole committee together, so one person has to go by themselves. But we go when we do it, and I have wild stories. Not wild stories sounds
Crazy.
crazy, but I have interesting stories of places we have been and to take care of Jews. Wild stories really would not fit this particular scene, but interesting stories of people who we have taken care of. And I think
Can you remember any that you could share with us?
yeah, well, the story I tell once is maybe I told the story. I told it recently about a woman who lived in it's a little town. Larry will know. It's a little town just west of Lake City. You know what the name of that town is?
Lee Cutler?
No,
Live Oak.
not Live. It's between Live Oak and Lake City. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Between Live Oak and Lake City, and I got a call from a family, and they said, "Mom just told us that my mom is here. She's on hospice. She just told us that she's Jewish and she wants to be her own." I mentioned this, and so I went up there, and the woman was being buried next to her pet cow on her farm, and she was born in Egypt and left, but because of some domestic violence situation, had hidden her Jewish origin from even her children until the very end of her life. We took care of her. We brought her body to Gainesville, did resuscitation, took her back to Lake City or wherever this town was outside of Lake City, and gave her Jewish funeral on her farm where her children had never known. Her children, who were in their 60s, never knew she was Jewish.
How did they take it?
They were, it was hard on them, very hard on them.
So you said you brought the body here. So when you go and do that, you always bring the body back, or you
Well,
do it at the
I mean,
bedside, or-
no, yeah, I mean, we have done it remotely, but, when you're working with a deceased person, it's better to have facilities around that make it a little bit easier. Bedside would be a little more difficult to pour water on, just all that.
Do you, okay, so
Yeah, and if you're by yourself, let me have a Hoyer lift.
this is very specific, but do you transport them in a hearse?
Oh, yeah. We work with the funeral home.
Oh, okay.
The funeral homes help in every community. Usually there's a funeral home that is not a Jewish funeral home, then it's one that I go and I teach them what they've done. And they're set up in the funeral home. They're set up and show them how to set up so that we can facilitate this in an easy way.
So is the body brought to the funeral home and it's done
Body's
there?
brought to the funeral home and it's
Okay.
not done there. But I have done it. I have done it in people's homes. I've done it in hospital situations. Not ideal, but
So it's
because
just like
hospitals
a
are
bed bath.
kind of weird about that. It's a little more than a bed bath because we also do like kind of mikvah, like a bath. But it's similar to that, and hospitals don't really want you in your ward for good reasons.
Aren't a lot, sometimes I just remember in Israel, aren't people buried without a casket?
Yes, and that's why I said in the United States. In Israel, people are buried without a casket. So that depends. Again, burial customs are very local. In the Middle East, that tradition of using a casket was not used. And here in Gainesville now, we do burials all the time at Prairie Cemetery, and they
Yeah,
and so I've done many funerals. Some funerals where there has not been a casket. But following the kind of Western idea of but it's different in different places.
So if there's not a casket, I'm just visualizing, he's in the casket, everybody's walking out, and they put it in the hole. If there's no casket, you just throw it.
No.
What
That's
do you
on a-
do?
Now they're on a board, right? On a board, wrapped in a sheet.
The face is still showing?
No.
Oh, the whole
The
thing.
whole body is wrapped,
Okay.
and there's no viewing. Judaism is usually, not always. This is also something that's different in different places, but in our customs, there's no viewing of the body. We want to remember the person as they were when they're alive, not as they were dead. Obviously, there's some viewing. Because the
in
person dies.
Switzerland, they come in and they put something.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Why? That's okay.
Yeah,
Um.
I just learned about this.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it but I just thought it was so interesting.
It is interesting, and you know, a lot of burial customs are influenced by the communities where people live, and what goes on in other faiths and other religions, and there's some superstition. Yeah.
Question. Howard shared this with me, and you just brought it up. We're not to look upon the dead, or however. Again, the idea of no viewing. One should not look at a dead body.
Well, I mean, when a person dies, you're looking at them. I mean, it's not like that moment that they die, all of a sudden you don't look at them. I mean,
But what did he mean by not looking at them? What do you like?
I didn't ask for a specific, but again, like we don't
have
we
a
don't do a
viewing.
viewing.
We don't have a viewing, but practically speaking, a person passes away. In traditional times, people passed away most often at home. The family was there. I mean, they saw them. They were there then. But a viewing, that is to dress the person up for a public viewing, was always seen in traditional Judaism as distasteful. But obviously the Chaver Kadisha is going to come in and wash the body. You can't, we look at it, you look at them. I mean, that's the way it's done. I mean, you don't wash the body, it's not like that. I mean, and truthfully, family members do come in, and family members do want to see the person, and it's okay. I mean, it's not like what we're trying to do is not embarrass the deceased, like saying we're going to put you on display. And there are cases where people die in kind of violent ways and things like that, where it's best, you don't want to leave that family with that kind of, impression. So it's not encouraged, but that it's not possible to say you never can, you never could see a deceased person. I mean, sometimes people are gonna pass away in situations. You're a medical person, you're gonna see a lot of dead people. I mean,
I think he was probably implying, the viewing.
it's probably implying, the kind of viewing that you see in like in like a wake or something like that, where the casket is open and the person's got makeup on, and their hair is done and they're wearing their best suit. We don't do that. So that's because that's not seen as practical. Also, why it's not done is because that's also a way of sort of separating, wealthy from poor. It's like, this is like the same for everybody. There's not going to be a viewing for anybody. It doesn't matter if you have 1,000 people at your funeral or nobody at your funeral. There's not going to be a viewing. And so that's the way it is. When a person dies, and you are a part of the immediate family, traditionally, the first thing you do is to tear your clothing. Today, that most often happens at the funeral. That's because people don't know about this custom, and we've adapted things. And today we've adapted it, and instead of tearing their clothing, they may tear a ribbon, and you may have seen this at funerals, where they tear a ribbon instead of their actual clothing. the idea is fairly simple. There's a line in the Talmud that speaks about that when you lose someone who you love, you feel a tear in your heart. We can't make a tear in our heart, but we can make a tear in our clothing. And when you consider that people only had one shirt, to tear your clothing was really destroying something valuable. Not like we have in our world where people, you may go home and have 20 or 30 shirts or ties or things like that. It was really a way of expressing pain, and expressing pain in a physical way is part of the process of encouraging grief and expressions of grief, because Judaism has always encouraged making or encouraged a physical kind of permission that it's okay to grieve. In Western societies, there's kind of a reluctance. Don't cry, don't show your grief, go back to work, try and get back to normal. Judaism has just the opposite idea. In Judaism, the idea is it's okay to cry, it's okay to have grief, it's okay to be able to show your grief with a torn shirt that you wear for the entire week of Shiva. You're wearing it as a symbol saying, I have lost a parent or a husband or a child. Those are the mourners, by the way. The people who are mourners in Judaism are the immediate family. It's not like the third cousin or community members. Mourners in Judaism are immediate family. That is your parents or your spouse or your children. That's it. But obviously other people will be sad as well, but they're just not counted as official mourners. And so tearing of your clothing is called kriya. There's a blessing that's said. Usually nowadays that's done at the funeral service. The funeral itself, and we just of course did one, for Bob. The funeral itself has no particular liturgical requirements. That's very, we don't have like a funeral, like you have to say like something. The essence of a funeral is the eulogy, okay, in Judaism. Talking about the deceased. There's no particular prayers that you have to do or that you have to say, or you have to stand on your head or do something like that. No. So you can be talking about the deceased is what a funeral is. And so that is what we do at a funeral. We surround that with psalms, with memorial prayers. Those are not required, but that makes what people expect to feel like a service, quote unquote. But the eulogy is the essence. At the burial of an individual, after the body is placed in the ground, traditionally the mourners are the ones who fill the grave and put the dirt in the grave. In our community, we often invite everybody to come and participate in that. The idea being that we take care of our own. We take care of our own people. We take care of our own community. The fulfill that requirement of filling their grave, not just letting somebody else come and fill the grave, but we take care of that. Again, as a commitment of taking care of someone with dignity and honor. After the funeral, the mourners, that is those people who are in the immediate family group that I mentioned, are in mourning. They observe 7 days of Shiva. 7 days is a week. Shiva comes from the word Shvi'i, which means 7. So Shiva is 7. During those 7 days, traditionally, the mourners do not work, do not go out of the house, do not prepare food, do not concern themselves with grooming or shaving or anything, or going to the beauty parlor